We are Louisiana Indivisible. From New Orleans to North Louisiana, from Baton Rouge to the Bayou, from Shreveport to St. Bernard Parish, from Lake Charles to Lafayette to Leesville. Together, we can defend our democracy. We Are Louisiana Indivisible is highlighting people, politicians, and organizations across the state and region that understand there are no kings but king cakes in Louisiana, and that y'all will always mean all. Listen, share with your friends and neighbors, and help us work for a better tomorrow in Louisiana and beyond. Talking to Clare Leavy today from Indivisible NOLA. Clare, thank you for spending some time with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am excited to talk to you. I wish it was under better circumstances. First and foremost, tell people a little bit about who you are and the position that you hold. We're going to have you on when times are not so trying for a bit more of an origin story and stuff. We want people to understand these local volunteers around our region, around our state, are all got very similar stories, honestly. And while it's a beautiful tapestry, there's more that unites us than divides us. But specifically, give us a little brief intro to who you are before we talk about the topic at hand and what's happening on the ground in New Orleans.
Sure. My name is Clare Leavy. I'm the acting chair for Indivisible NOLA. We are a new incarnation of a local Indivisible chapter, and we've grown very rapidly recently. We've been focusing on mobilizing for nationwide mass mobilization, such as Hands Off, the first No Kings over the summer, and most recently, the second No Kings on 10/18. And we're focused on this particular moment. So our mission is to resist authoritarian takeover, to demand equal rights for all, and to stand in solidarity with those targeted by Trump's agenda. So these ICE, DHS, CBP raids that are coming for us all over the state of Louisiana falls very squarely within our mission statement, and our entire organization right now is focused on community protection and response.
So first of all, it is constant in our algorithms and our feeds right now. If you're in the state of Louisiana, you see news stories left and right about this move. And I think it is only because they know the engagement in the comment section is going to be there from both sides, right? Talk to people about what is actually happening. I know what people around the state are saying and what some of the worst elements of our political and media machines are telling us, but what is actually happening? Who is being targeted and where is ICE beginning to be active right now in the city?
Sure. Well, to be clear, since Trump took office, we have seen increased ICE harassment of the community, starting actually even a little before he took office. So what we're seeing now since the 14th of this month is a ramp up, which includes forces that were ICE forces already on the ground, as well as U.S. Marshals. This looks a little bit different in New Orleans than it does in other cities that have experienced an influx concentrated ICE raid or CBP operations. We think it's most accurate to characterize this type of increased activity that is on its way to us as a raid, as an invasion. We have already seen this ramping up. What we are preparing for now is CBP and Bovino to come here, where we expect things to change dramatically. So far, people have been harassed at their workplaces. Work sites have been targeted particularly, and we've been seeing again since probably November an increase in just monitoring highways and roadways where they expect immigrants or people of color to be traveling to and from work and performing arbitrary stops, right, based on racial profiling. Reports of ICE sightings have increased, again, since the 14th. We expect that to explode once Bovino is set up here, and we're just going to have to rely on each other for the best information possible about what their activity looks like, what their strategy is, what their density is in certain neighborhoods. And so right now we're building out a community support network that is ready for anything, knowing that their tactics are likely to change, and we'll have to make a plan that works for us to protect our community depending on how this actually plays out on the ground in New Orleans.
The number one thing that I think of as you're talking there is that their targets, the places where they are setting up large operations, shows the lie of what they say they're doing. They say they're targeting criminals. They say they are sweeping these dangerous individuals from our streets, when in fact they are targeting working individuals who are paying taxes for which they are not reaping the benefits of. Just, I want to remind people of that. One of the things that I'm wondering about, and I know it's something I'm focused on in my own region in the north of the state, are there faith groups in New Orleans that have gotten involved in this effort? I see, especially in the Carolinas, I saw a church that was doing training for how to intervene and in what ways to intervene safely, especially in these sorts of interactions. Are there any faith-based organizations that are connected to your efforts currently, or that you know that are working for their own efforts?
Absolutely. This is an all hands on deck moment. So basically, any organized group, whether they're civic, whether they're faith based, whether they provide public services in a number of areas, they're all activated and trying to work with each other to provide as many opportunities for training and mutual aid as possible. So, absolutely, many local churches have been engaged in this effort, providing a safe space for trainings. And I would split those trainings up into kind of two buckets. One is trainings and legal support for folks who are likely to be affected, whether they're undocumented, have mixed immigration status, or they have a reason to feel that they're going to be targeted. Maybe a member of their family has mixed immigrant status. So those kind of trainings have been put on for the past 10 months. And honestly, prior to this, considering ICE operations have always been happening here in a way where many people just don't get a fair chance for illegal immigration status. This has been an ongoing problem with our system that predates Trump. One of the groups that has been leading the way with this is Unimigrante. They're a local immigrants-led immigrants' rights group. So many of these trainings you see at these churches around town are led by them, and they provide things like emergency plans, lawyer consultations, making sure you have ID cards, helping with things like making sure your car is legal. So these are invaluable for communities to brace for the worst case scenario for themselves or their families and loved ones. The other bucket of trainings are directed at allies. So these range from basic know your rights to now, with what we expect to happen here in New Orleans and across the state, getting pretty specific, training in things like ICE rapid response, how to film and document properly, and making sure people are fully aware of the risks associated with interacting with federal law enforcement based on the lessons from other cities, particularly Chicago, which happens to be where I was born and raised before I moved to New Orleans. There is a massive Indivisible network up there, and we're working with the Indivisible Chicago Alliance as well as the ACLU and our local loose coalition of groups united under the campaign Free the Swamp to put on one of these rapid response and legal consultation for allies trainings this Tuesday at the Broadside Theater.
That's fantastic. Nobody knows how to organize like Chicago. So yeah, kudos. You got your credentials right there. One of the things that I think people overlook is the way that Trump and his administration's moves across the country, but now especially in Louisiana, have a chilling effect on the economy of this state. This is not just a person problem or a human issue, which it obviously is. It is also an economic one. And so much of the state's budget, but specifically broadly comes from tourism, but specifically comes from tourism in New Orleans. And I was just there at Halloween with a group. I had several people locals tell me that their businesses had already been affected, that their bookings are down, et cetera, for international travels especially, but even for travelers from across the country. But how is this going to affect the labor market? Is it already affecting the labor market where people are staying home, where people are trying to seek somewhere else to be because they are worried about their status or potential targeting?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, if we back up a little bit to understand the economic landscape of New Orleans in particular, as you said, service and hospitality, tourism is a real driver and a real linchpin for our local economy. It's been struggling since the pandemic, quite frankly. It hasn't recovered. What we're seeing going along with that has been a dramatic increase in rental housing costs that has in turn caused this diaspora of folks leaving the city seeking a place where they can actually afford to live and afford to work. And that has a ripple effect of just negative impact on our economy. So service industry jobs, I'm a chef personally, been in the industry roughly 23 years here in New Orleans. So I've seen it firsthand. When we talk about what's about to happen here, will it hurt the economy? Absolutely. But we should note that even before the idea of federal intervention in New Orleans got real with plans, for example, Landry's request for National Guards, or what we're seeing now, anticipating Bovino, a ramp up of marshals, even earlier this year, just Trump's negative portrayal of New Orleans and other majority Black, Democratic led cities as violent, dangerous, horrible places has affected our economy. Backing up again to the National Guard, I mean, I think that everybody within the state understands the score here, including Landry and some of his business allies. I would cite that as the main reason that National Guard hasn't been deployed yet, because everybody knows it's bad for business. When you see people in military gear patrolling streets, it creates an environment of fear. It reinforces the idea that this is dangerous, and it makes it dangerous for the residents themselves to go to work. So already, with advance warning that CBP was here starting on Friday to get set up to begin their quote unquote swamp sweep, reign of terror, we've seen people afraid to go to work. We've seen restaurants and hotels that are supportive of the community advising people to stay home. We've seen parents and families be afraid to go to school, to go to the doctor. So all of this has a compounding effect of negatively impacting the community and our economy, and making it harder for people to survive under what are already horrible conditions in Louisiana. We do not have the basic necessities for life for people to imagine a future for themselves in Louisiana. And this is an ongoing problem. Negligence from our governors, from our state legislature, from our national representatives of not funneling money into the things that people actually need, like education, like healthcare, like affordable housing. This all just makes it that much worse, which is why outside of the terror that's being spread around in anticipation of this, you're also seeing a lot of anger. How dare they be focusing on this when we have real problems and they're doing nothing to help the people of Louisiana?
Claire, you said it so beautifully there. I mean, I'm not done talking to you, but I almost want to wrap up the interview, because that is the crux of this thing. It's like, never mind the cruelty of it all. Just on the list of priorities, how could you get to this first when there's so much more ahead of that we ought to focus on as a state specifically, but as a country as a whole? Claire, I want to ask specifically about the coalescing resistance to this action. You mentioned that Indivisible NOLA has grown fairly rapidly recently. I know that's happening across the state and across the country. No Kings 2 in October was significantly larger than the event in the summer. And it's sadly because situation has gotten worse, right? Like, things are not getting better, and more people are noticing. But do you see a sense of like a coalescing resistance? Are there groups that perhaps had disagreed on finer points in the past, but that are stepping up to stand along each other now because of this current invasion of New Orleans? You said it best early.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the New Orleans organizing ecosystem has been strong historically and interconnected in ways. However, there tend to be little webs that work together on an issue that aren't connected to other little webs. What we're seeing is all of those networks getting connected on a macro level that's citywide, including the surrounding areas. And that is so heartening and so impressive to see.
Yeah.
Everybody is standing up, being willing to put aside small differences and say, what matters now is that we all agree this is unacceptable. It's undemocratic. It's a threat to our very way of life and our community. Therefore, when it comes to preparing for this invasion, it is all hands on deck, and any issues you might have with each other, put them to the side. Yeah, and in terms of our growth, I'll say, just in particular after getting some media attention about, well, what are local groups doing? Just in the past 2 days, Indivisible NOLA has gotten to almost 300 new members. And when it comes to people wanting to get interested in volunteering for community protection, rapid response efforts, I've personally logged over 180 signups in the past day. So the response is enormous. And for folks who used to feel like, well, I'm too busy, life is hard, I work a full-time job, maybe 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet, and in my precious spare time, I just want to be able to enjoy my life. That's that, Le Bon Temps Roulette attitude of New Orleans, right? And I think that's okay. We shouldn't shame people for having that attitude in the past and even now. If they're not ready or able to take action, people should assess what they have capacity for, both in their lives and emotionally. This is difficult stuff, right? But now the shift has been, as this nationwide movement has been growing and is powered by ordinary people, then shored up by organized courage is contagious. And you're seeing people say, oh, I thought I needed some special knowledge. I thought I needed some training. I thought I better let the professionals do this kind of work. Now they're seeing every single person is needed and welcome, and they're willing to be brave and do things they never would have imagined doing before. And it's amazing. I'm really, really proud of our city and our state for that reason.
That's exactly it. The one thing that I have felt continually when I have gone to Indivisible events, especially, is just a sense of hope and optimism, and that reminding of, like, I'm not out here alone feeling these things and trying, wishing, hoping for a better day. There's actually a lot of us, and it's purposeful, the feeling that we're alone and left alone at home to do these things. So, okay, let's pivot to that for a moment. For those of us from different parts of the state, we can't come down there maybe and throw elbows with you all on a day-to-day basis as you face this invasion. But what can we do from North Louisiana, from Georgia, from Arkansas and Alabama and Texas, wherever we are in this nation, as we see you be the current, battlefield of focus? What can we do from afar?
Sure. What most important things folks can do is talk to each other. We find that even just networking with other indivisible chapters around the state, the political landscape and the political education of folks is very different from region to region. But we are an overwhelmingly red state for many people culturally. Republicans were the right option. They were the American option. They were the only option. And they might not be that interested in politics. In general, I find most people in Louisiana are disengaged in politics rather than being ardently on one side or another. So when it comes to who am I supposed to vote for, if you or your family was affiliated with Republicans, you choose the R if you vote at all. Right now, we need to break that cycle and make people really understand in face-to-face conversations with people who you love and care about, even if you disagree on other issues, to say this isn't about politics or political party. This is about an authoritarian takeover of democracy, and have that conversation with them about why do we say that? There's evidence from history, and we've seen this pattern all over the world and even within our own country, with the Jim Crow laws, with our legacy of slavery, with other instances where there's been a concerted effort to other a specific group of people as a scapegoat to distract from the consolidation of power and the greed of corporations behind the scenes. So we know what this is. I think the first step is saying, here, this is what this is. This is about saving democracy. And then going through the issues that are important to people where they are. Are you in the marketplace? Have you looked to see how much your premium is about to increase? Are you a SNAP beneficiary? Do you know when these cuts are going to take effect? So there can be this combo of education and awareness development that happens at the same time that you're asking the right questions to see what needs the people around you are going to have coming up. A lot of people don't know this information, and if they're in a Fox News bubble, they're not being provided with how will specifically from the big, beautiful bill affect them personally. And people who are organizing, we know the stats in Louisiana. It's going to affect almost every single person in this state in a negative way that makes life harder to live. So once we have people understanding that, we need to get them registered to vote. We need to educate them about new attempts at voter suppression that might have affected what districts they're in, what party they can vote in for the primary. The list goes on, and there's some great resources for that with ACLU of Louisiana. We're also working statewide with other groups for the long term here on voter engagement, education, and making sure that if people didn't have a reason to vote before, they have a reason now to vote against the party that is embracing control through fear and dominance and basically dismantling our democratic system.
100%. And holding, it's not a partisan issue, or it shouldn't be. This is about holding all politicians to account to serve the public, to serve the people that they are sent there to represent and to help. I started to say provide for, not provide for, but to protect and to serve. That is exactly what their job is. We need to remind them of it, from the very highest to the very lowest. Clare, you said it so perfectly earlier. Courage is contagious. And that's what I want people to hear. If you stand up in your own little way in whatever corner of the state or the region of the country that you are, it will be affecting and a leadership moment for others around you to help stand up and help toe the line with you. Clare, we're going to put the links in the show notes for this episode so that they can make a donation to Indivisible NOLA directly, as well as some of the other organizations that you mentioned specifically. People can get involved and donate from afar or share the word at least in their own little corner. But I think the takeaway, and this will be an ongoing drumbeat for this podcast, I think. It's about conversations with our own family, friends, neighbors. It's about having that conversation about what is it going to take to get you to understand what your own benefit would come from.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say also get offline so much and talk to people face to face. It's much harder to mischaracterize somebody or to other them when you're in person with them and you realize we're all just people. I think that's how you change hearts and minds. And I also think one unifying thing that we have across this very diverse country of ours, different religions, different ethnicities, different theories of change, different socioeconomic status, the thing that we can hold on to in this moment is the Constitution. And that is what we're trying to protect here.
Really is that simple. Clare Leavy with Indivisible NOLA, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. And thank you for all of your efforts right now in the city of New Orleans. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Joel.
We are Louisiana Indivisible. Listen, share with your friends and neighbors, and help us work for a better tomorrow in Louisiana and beyond.